Hi, I'm Dave, and there's been a lot of talk lately in the news and on social media about churches and church services simply because of this coronavirus issue that's going around, and good conversation. Pastors and church leaders are having to talk about what to do next. They can't have people gathering together at the church, so some are doing live broadcasts using YouTube or Zoom or something like that. Some are having drive-in type theater type situations and all kinds of unique ideas. And I applaud the idea that people are trying to do unique things or thinking outside the box and thinking of different things. We've been given some guidance by the Bible. We've been given some direction by God about meeting on a regular basis and to assemble together. And the Bible's pretty clear on that. In the book of Deuteronomy, it says, "Assemble the people, the men, the women, and the little ones, and even the traveler, the sojourner within your towns, that they may hear and learn and fear the Lord your God, and be careful to do also all the words of this law, and that their children who've not known it may hear it and learn to fear the Lord your God." That comes from Deuteronomy. That's early on in the lives of God's people. Get together, teach the children, teach each other, learn the words of this law, teach them so that all of you will learn to fear the Lord. That's a positive thing in our life. And we know even in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, as the church begins to explode, as it begins to grow, we read the words, "All who believed were together, and they had all things in common. They sold their possessions and their goods and distributed them to all, according to as everyone had need. Day by day, continually steadfastly in the temple, and breaking bread at home, they took their food with gladness and singleness of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to the people day by day those who were being saved." There is something important for all of us in that gathering together, that idea of spending time together. The book of Hebrews, a well-known scripture, let's consider how to provoke one another to love and to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the custom of some is, but exhorting one another, all the more as you see the day approaching. So we know from the scriptures that's a terribly important thing for us to do. But how does that happen? Well, I've got a few thoughts on that. It's probably lacking in the suggestion field as much as the rest of you, but I do have some thoughts. Number one, the idea of assembling together. There's nothing in the scripture that says that happens on a Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. That, matter of fact, isn't there at all. Even on the Sabbath day that the Israelites followed, that was not always the day of their gatherings. They often gathered on other days because, in theory, on the Sabbath, just getting to the synagogue would have been much more of a journey than they could handle. So they understood that as important as the Sabbath was, gathering together, as important as that is, those two things don't always coincide. It's not always the same day. Secondly, our churches have traditionally met on Sunday, what we call the first day of the week. That's a tradition of man. That's not biblical. It's not wrong. It's a great idea. It's a day that usually is free in our culture, so there's nothing wrong with that. But it is not a biblical mandate at all. It's not even a suggestion. It is truly a tradition of man. We need to get together. We need to spend time together. Now, I would argue in my travels across this country, in almost every church I've ever been to, there is very little gathering together on a Sunday morning. Yes, we all come together in the same auditorium, and we all sing the same five songs, and we all listen to the same lecture, and then we all go home and shake hands and all of that. But there's very little of sharing life together. There's very, very little of spending quality time, knowing each other's issues, knowing each other's family. That comes outside, usually, of that controlled service environment. Nothing wrong with the service. Nothing wrong with it all. Please, I've been accused of being anti-church, and that's not true. But there is more. There needs to be more. And right now is the prime time for something unique, something more, something thinking outside of the box. Let's take that Sunday morning service that we're so comfortable with and we enjoy, and set it aside for a minute and say, we are the church, the bride of Christ. How can we act like it? What can we do to serve the widows and the orphans and those who are in need? What can we do to spend time with one another, even though we can't necessarily be face to face? And thirdly, there's one more thing I would add to this conversation, and this will sound rather harsh, but there is a huge drive for that Sunday morning church building gathering together, which again is a tradition of man. It is not a mandate of the Bible, but we've got these multi-million-dollar buildings that need your money, and they need it desperately to maintain these multi-million-dollar buildings just so we could meet there, when really what the Bible is asking us to do is gather together with one another. Secondly, I would argue that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and I know this for sure from my travels across this great country, who are good, godly, believing people who love Jesus with all their heart, that will never open the door of your church. For whatever reason, they've been hurt, they've been through situations, they've been through all kinds of things. They now know that God does not inhabit the walls of a building. God inhabits his people. And sometimes we walk into those buildings and we do not find God's people. Sad, but true. So think about this. Number one, there are thousands, tens of thousands of people across this country who are not in your church building or any other church building in the community. And secondly, you have thousands of people individually. You have dozens, hundreds of people in your church building who do not know and follow the ways of Jesus Christ. So we have two issues right there that make me wonder the importance of this traditional, institutional, building-bound church. And I can't help but wonder, maybe, just maybe, God is starting to break this up a little bit. Just make us uncomfortable enough that we can say, we can't meet in that building anymore. We can't go to that institution anymore. Not in the same way that we used to, but we can and we will still be the church to our neighbors, to our friends, to our loved ones, to the people outside the city, outside the gates, to the people outside of what they believe is the love of God. And it's up to us to still go out and share the love of Jesus with our neighbors. That is the commandment. That is the mandate, to go and to love one another. Not to meet on Sunday morning at church. The mandate is to love one another. And if we are forced outside the walls of that building, maybe we'll find a church that you never knew existed. Maybe, just maybe, God knows what he's doing. Have a great day. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.